All right, hi guys. Thank you for coming in and getting here on time. It is 6:57, so we will start right at 7 o'clock. But I wanted to just touch base and say hi really quick. So if you need to go and do something really quick before we start, please do so now. Because we will get started right at 7. Mr. Bush is going to be running the call tonight, and he is going to be asking questions, and I will be picking you at random in the chat room, so be aware and be paying attention. All right, we'll get started in about 2 minutes. Okay, Mr. Bush, are you ready? I'm going to give you control of the presentation. I want to remind everyone that is in here that we are in a classroom setting. We're appropriate for school, so keep that in mind when we are chatting in the chat room. I don't want to have to remind people to control themselves. So just as an FYI, I am a teacher and I am recording this, and any of the messages that are chatted are being recorded and can be reviewed after this class. So just so you have that heads up.
Hi, everybody. I don't know nothing yet. Ms. Wood, you're still presenting, so I'm gonna, okay. Yeah. So thank you, everybody who showed up here on time. It's really important to be on time. And as a bonus of being on time, if you're paying attention, you're gonna get a free question. All right, so what I'm gonna say is, this is the question is, what's the answer that I gave to the first question? And the answer, what I'm going to give you, is Spartans green. Okay, so that is, and you shouldn't give this to anybody who shows up late. But basically, when Mrs. Wood you to answer a question, if you are the ask is going to be what was the answer to the question. So if you were here, then you will get the answer. So congratulations for being we're a couple announcements first. Friday is our first practice competition, and a lot of our veterans know that how those competitions go. And I think through the practice, through the training images, a lot have gotten idea about what that is all about. But this will be the real, and so it should be pretty exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm planning on coming for at least part of it, and Mr. Rodriguez too, so you can meet us in person if you haven't before, and it should be lots of fun. So let's see, that's the first note, and then as I said, we're gonna pick at random, and this is actually the technique for these online classes, is that it's so easy to just and sit there and watch it like it's TV and try to do your homework or something else. But if you aren't paying attention, you may miss an important topic. So what I'm going to do is ask a basic question from something that and then Mrs. Wood will help pick you at random. And basically, you should expect to receive at least one question along the way. So anyway, here we go. We'll see what we have time for. First thing is, I'm also going to point out that what I have here, and these presentations are in the Google Drive. Let me show you where they're at. So here's the Cyber Patriot area, and of course up here is where we're doing a lot of the new stuff for the 2017. But we have this weekly meeting folder. And this briefing is right here in the Cyber Patriots meeting 10/11/17. Okay. And let's see. These are hyperlinked, so they can take. But the first thing is the Cyber Patriot training module. So I'll just click on it so you can see what it says. So these are on the uscyberpatriot.org site, and there's a lot of good general information. I think we talked about getting everybody to go through all this information, but we have our first practice competition, so I wanted to jump a little bit ahead from all these other topics and move right into these two topics, which is 7 and 8, Introduction to Linux and Ubuntu Security. So those links are in this briefing, so you can find it again, and we'll just get right into it. Intro to Linux. Okay. Basically, what is Linux? I'd like to see somebody on, I know veterans on there. Let's just have a real quick answer on what is Linux on the side there. This doesn't count as you're being asked a question, would. I just want to see someone type it out there. It's an operating system. Very good, Tyler. That was very good. It's not harder than Windows. It's just different than Windows. Okay. And OS. OS stands for operating system. Very good. All right, let's move on. Okay. Now, it's actually Linux is a family of operating systems because basically Linux, because it is an operating system that's built by people like you or me, contributing to what they call open source software, writing software. People come up with different variants, and the variant that we are mostly interested in for Cyber Patriots is Ubuntu. And actually, it's you can Google this, I'm sure, but Ubuntu named because of the person who, and I don't know the exact connection, but basically a rich person from that lived in Africa decided that was his legacy. He wanted to spend money to make the Ubuntu Linux releasable to everyone. So you can go and download that all for free. So one of the many benefits, probably the biggest benefit to use Linux as an operating system, is that it's freely available to everyone. So, all right, Mrs. Wood, I'd like to ask, see if you can pick somebody to get the first question, and if we can do this on audio, that'd be good.
Delvin, you want to type it in and go ahead and go for it? What was that answer to that first question? My mic's broken at the moment. Go ahead and type it in.
So I'll remind everybody that if you showed up on time, I told everybody to pay attention because I was going to be asked questions, and I told everyone who was paying attention. All right. Thank you.
There you
yes,
go.
that was the question. Okay, so I will have more questions. So as we go along, so please, everybody pay attention. And Delvin passed, and hopefully he wasn't given that question, the answer by one of his teammates or something. But anyway, off we go. Okay, now I'm going to go kind of quickly through these charts, and apologize in advance for that. But we only have about 45 minutes, and so I like show you where these are and take you through some of it, and then really get into the meat of this session, which is to give you some you can actually use on your competition on Friday. And yeah, I think everyone should, even though you may have already decided that someone to be in charge of Linux or not, really we'd like everybody to learn all the different operating systems, because when your teammate gets in a pinch, the one that maybe starts off working, he or she might need some help. And it really helps when other people know what's going on. So, okay, so there's just some terminology. The kernel, if you can think of like a kernel of corn, like it's the smallest part, you know, the kernel blows up into popcorn. That's kind of what the kernel is here. It's the lowest level thing between the CPU, that's the actual computer, the central processing unit, the hardware, and the software. So the very first layer. Then there's a shell, and then user. These are different layers. When we're going to be working, we're going to be at the user level. And actually, I'll just go ahead and show you. So here is a Ubuntu image that Mr. Rodriguez put together, and I'll type in the path. CP user 2017. So you can see, for those of you that already tried out this image from before, you can see it. It has, you know, similar kind of thing as when some things, icons you can select, and a file browser, and a number of other things. But so this is way above the kernel. The kernel is the very first thing when you see it boot up. Okay. All right. I already mentioned that Ubuntu is the one that we use, but there's a lot of different versions. Government likes to use Red Hat, and the biggest reason I think they Red Hat, even though it's free, is that there's a company behind it that provides support. So that's really helpful. All right, we're ready for another question, Mr. Wood. Can you pick somebody?
Sure, let's go with one of our newbies. Let's see. Abraham, you want to answer this next question for us? Does your mic work, Abraham? Nope. Okay, so then you can type in your answer then. Mr. Bush, do you want to ask the question?
Okay, yeah. All right, the question is, what's the biggest benefit of using the Linux operating system?
Abraham, do you have a guess of what could be a benefit of using the Linux operating system? Didn't mean to pick on you, sweetie.
Hey, everybody's going to get picked on, right? That's kind of how this is supposed to work.
Well, Abraham, let's give you some help. Open source, yep, absolutely. Diane,
what is open source?
Diane,
okay, go ahead.
Diane, your mic is on, so why don't you go ahead and answer that question? What is open source? Diane, you there? Anyone else want to help them out? Or your mattresses screen. Very good. Isaac, Landon, thank you. Chris, best terminal. Ashley Chen, anyone can contribute. Thank you very much, you guys. Well done.
And for some reason, I'm seeing it on the chat. Are they replying? Oh, shoot, here it is down. Never mind. It's free for anybody to use. The key word was free. Thank you, Lando. That I was saying earlier. Okay, so now does everybody get this, how this game works? You get attention, and I'll try and tip you off to when you should be paying attention, but we're going to be people at random. So, okay, here we go. All right, so we have talked about it's cheaper. That's the difference with Windows. There's a thing called the command line, and we're going to learn a little about the command line because we're going to be using it. Actually, the old Windows operating system, which was DOS, disk operating system, did a lot of things with what you call the command line. Less malware on Linux. That's not true. You really have to watch out. Just like people use Apple systems, they get a less malware, but there's definitely attempts by hackers to attack these systems. So you do have to watch out. Okay, similarities. There's that they could be servers or workstations. So for example, this over here, this little version here that Mr. Rodriguez put together is basically like a user style system. If you're in a server environment, you'd probably be having all kinds of services that you're running, that you're supporting, and that's how you provide the kinds of things that people on the internet use. Okay, let's see. There are programs that function that look like Microsoft Office, LibreOffice, and want everybody to pay attention to that. So Office is a very, it's another program that is provided free on the internet. And the way it is free is that like you and me can contribute to it. So right now, I know a lot of you are thinking about going into computer science in the future, and that's great. One thing you can do, even before you have a real job in the world, is actually go and build the software, make changes to it, and fix bugs. So you can do that today. You don't have to wait until you're in college or get a degree or anything like that. Anybody can contribute. So anyway, but LibreOffice is one of those programs, and people who, and you can maybe see it over here on my desktop, LibreOffice, it allows people to go ahead and have basically something exactly like Microsoft Office, but for free. Then Microsoft Office, if anyone's gone out to buy some, knows it's very expensive. So here's an example of LibreOffice Writer. Looks like Microsoft Word. Okay. All right, so here's some Ubuntu terminology and concepts. One thing is the root account. Now, just like I showed you that diagram before about the layers, you can think of as like the root of a tree, like everything gets above the root. And the point is if you are root, you are ultra powerful. You are the administrator. You can do whatever you want. And for several cyber patriots from years past, what we've is shown how if you're root, you can delete the operating system. So you can actually go and just completely delete files and do whatever you want. Root is very powerful. So remember the term root. That's the root user. And it actually is root. So you can log in as root, and unless your securities are, yeah, okay, I'm looking over there on the right. Yeah, there's commands, the sudo command, or sudo command. Yeah, you can delete, System 32 would be on a Windows system, but Okay, time for another question. Mr. Wood, will you please do the honors?
All right, go ahead, Landon. Make it hard, Mr. Bush. Go for it.
Oh, you're making it hard. I was going to do an easy one. Anyway, I'll ask. So what is the kind of program that is also open source and freeware, but can be used as a replacement for Microsoft Office?
Landon, can you answer that? Google Drive is his answer.
That's sort of an answer, but it's not the answer. LibreOffice, yes. LibreOffice is the answer. I heard that. I'm shocked that Landon didn't get that one. All right. So I'm looking at some of the questions on the side there that somebody said, well, why would you not run all your commands as root? And I'll answer that real quick. It's very risky. The whole point of root is that because it's all powerful, then all of a sudden, if you do in a command, you could actually have unintended consequences like deleting everything. So in fact, it's also a security problem because if you are root, you're allowed to do a lot of different things. So one of the things we're going to learn about is this sudo command, which helps actually in security. So I'll show you that some more. All right, so all right, the Windows system, you can see that it does slashes for your directories. So in Windows, you have C:\/ documents \hello text, Linux and Unix, and also on for those of you who use Macs are based on Unix. You use // like this, and each of these / is a layer in the directory. All right. So when you will have to go through some folders as part of using your Linux, and you'll use those slashes. Adding and removing software is a little bit different. Linux has things called packages and package managers. There's a thing called the Ubuntu Software Center. It looks like a software store, but it's different. And you can see all these about, once again, it says users must enact root permissions to install, uninstall. Acting root permissions is not the same as being root, but it's moving, it's getting the root. Okay, so here is the intro to the Ubuntu command line. All right, command line, inevitably people end up having to go to the command line. And so in the command line, I'm just going to show you another example here. Use Rodriguez's virtual machine. Okay, so to get the command line up, and this is actually in the charts, you can right click on the desktop area here and do open terminal. And the terminal window is how you interact with the system sending commands. And for example, one of the commands is ls. ls is the directory command. And when you use, a lot of times when you're trying to figure out where you are or what's in there, you could do ls. Sorry, there's also a command called the manual, because like you want to get some help, you might use help on Windows, but for Linux, it's manual, or it's man. So you can type man ls. This gives you the description of what ls is. So ls is for list directory content. And then you pass some options, and then you can also put some files. For example, ls-a. So these are some of the options. So I'm going to try that, ls-a. So now it's listing all the files, including all hidden files. These files with a period in front are considered the hidden files. All right, going back to the pros and cons. So it's not as user-friendly, it's harder to multitask. Oh, just looked over there. So what does the man code do? So man is basically the command for figure out other commands. So like we saw some folks earlier asking questions like, so let's do man sudo. So sudo is execute a command as another user. So sudo is for a user to execute a command as a super user or another user. So instead of root, like in this case, if you look over here on the left, it's saying my account CP user. If I want to switch to root, then I can type sudo and let's do man su. Change the user ID or become super user. So I can do sudo su root. And now it's asking me for my password. And now one tip off that I'm now the root user is I've got this pound sign here, and also it shows the root over here on the left. Those are basic things that are provided by the shell. And let's scroll here. Sorry for going fast if your screen isn't keeping up. Talked about the kernel, and then we have the shell, and then the user. So you can see the shell is the thing that you find yourself when you're inside the terminal. You're at the shell level. And in fact, this is, I believe, this is one shell. So if you say man sh, the command interpreter shell. Oh, this dash, huh? Okay, let's go back ahead. So I'm actually root right now. Got that pound sign, so that's super powerful. I showed you less, and I showed you how to terminal.
Mr. Bush, I've got some questions that are being fielded on the right-hand side there. You've got, what about changing directory? And then just talking about how did you get to the shell in general? If you can maybe address those pretty quickly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I did that pretty quick, so probably people missed it. I'm going to close this out, close the terminal, and I'll just minimize this. You can see like, oh, well, there's a terminal thing here. I can click there, but let me close that out too. All right, now there's no actually terminals. But if you right-click onto the desktop, you can use the terminal. That's how you get to the directory. That I did was ls. Oh, that's fine. It's giving a listing of the directory, and man ls to see, you know, what are the different options. But one of the commands that I really like is pwd. That's pretty much directory. So that's showing the directory that I'm at. So I'm at home/CP user. So I'm basically in CP user's home directory. Okay, so that was Landon asked that question, and somebody asked what does su root mean? So if you string commands together, so we had sudo, which we're going to get to in some further charts, but sudo is to execute a command as the root. Then you say what the command is. So I can do sudo ls and execute the command as root. So I'm now going to type the password. You notice that executing the command as root, it doesn't change things. It just changed the color a little bit. But if I was deleting something, I might not have permissions to delete it as my regular user. And that's where, when you become root, oh, just did another thing, kind of instinctively from my years with Linux. You type cd ... what you're basically saying is cd to one directory higher. You notice how I started as CP user, I did cd ... then I became /home, and then ... and then it became /. So now I'm at the top level of the tree. And if I do ls-l, you see a bunch of other options. It shows who owns it, these are the permissions, and you can read about this all by doing the man page, man. All right, I want to get you guys some good stuff to use on Friday, so I'm going to keep going. So here's some more sample commands. You go back and try these things on your own. And this can be done also in when you're during the competition, and you can bring up these charts and look at them as a reference. So don't forget that. There's a cat command. It's basically cat is basically send information. The arrow is to send it to the file. Okay, another question, time for a question. Ms. Wood.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so the question is, how do you, if you're in the Linux window, how do you open up the terminal window?
Cameron, do you want to type in an answer for that for us, please? Cameron, are you there with us? No, maybe Cameron had to leave. Okay, thank you. Why can't you get a question like that, Landon? Seriously. What about Garvin? I know you've been doing this for a long time. Why don't you go ahead and go for it, Garvin? Go ahead, Brennan. Go ahead, help Garvin out. Yes, that's correct, right? Click then press terminal when you're on the desktop. Very good, Brennan. Thank you.
Okay. There's some more sample commands. And here's some information about command syntax. Basically, when we're talking about syntax, we're saying like, well, when you type in a command, like what is the way to actually put in that command? So when I used the man command, you found out that, oh, there's instructions on how that works. So you kind of already saw this, but first have the command, then you have options, and you see those little minuses. Minuses specify the options, and then you have something that maybe you're acting on, the file name location. So, here's something about the sudo command. Now, I've actually heard some people dispute this, so I'm going to tell you, and this is something everyone should remember. Some people call the sudo command sudo, but I went and Googled this, and I actually suspect before I Googled it that the reason why it's spelled there is sudo. It's like switch user, SU, and do it for me. So switch user and do something for me. So switch user to the root, and then do it. So if you say so, then you're like saying like, what am I? Sudo? No, you're not. To do something. So anyway, yeah, super user is SU user, but it's also switch user. So if, for example, and we'll do this, man u, change user or become super user. So it's kind of both. Man sudo. Execute a command as another user, but you do something. All right. The thing is here's an example of becoming a user. Let's see. I'm sorry. Nothing like, let's add a user. So sudo add user Archimedes. Let's try that. Sudo add user Archimedes. Oh, sudo, sorry. I spelled it wrong, but anyway. You always have to put in your password. Now, one thing I'm going to, so there it's adding, it's making me give a password. I just can't seem to type the same password twice. Anyway, that's an example because as a normal user, I could add a user, but I could as the user. So I'd like to have you pick someone at random, Ms. Wood.
Man, you're making me pick on everybody. My goodness. Let's see. Who wants to get?
I know. Yeah, it hasn't been picked on before.
Somebody we haven't picked on before. Andrew Sanders, go for it.
Okay, so this is okay, I'll give you answer. Give me just a or B answer. So what's the proper pronunciation for sudo? Is it sudo or sudo? So answer A would be sudo, and A would be sudo.
Andrew, are you there?
What's a U? No.
So the pronunciation is?
So the pronunciation would be
Sudo, right? Or sudo? Is it?
Which is it? Sudo or sudo?
So Andrew, they're helping you out in the chat room there.
If you look in the chat room.
Good job, Cyber Patriot friends. There we go. Good job.
Okay.
Way to be paying attention to. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, so we already covered these things. Let me keep going. All right, so that's the first briefing charts. And like I said, I know I went fast and I'm apologize, but I want to get us to the Linux security one because this might actually score you some points on Friday's competition. So here we go. Ubuntu security. Okay, so basic security. Well, really, it's a little bit like Windows. You got to go into the control panel and the settings. So, not the control panel, but the settings window. There's the system settings window. I'm going to click on it, and it says Linux does not have a control panel. System settings is on the menu bar. You do have something very handy here, and this will help you get points. I can tell you already, user accounts. And in this case, we sort of got a half-built Archimedes account, and then we have the main. You can see a couple things. The account is a standard account, tells you what language they are, and the account is disabled. Also, you'll see this little lock thing over here. You need to click on it to unlock and to make it. So let's keep going here. So you can see same thing it's telling you about the administrator password. You find, I guarantee you, on the competition that there's probably going to be a user that's an administrator that shouldn't be. So you're going to have to be able to change that person. And just taking you through it. First, you unlock. Let's put a password in. And this has to be a password of an administrator. Okay. Oh gosh. All right. So now it's. You notice up in the corner it says lock now. It's not because it's locked. It means if you want to lock it, you click that button again. So now you can make changes. So I can actually make Archimedes an administrator if I want, or make him standard. So keep him standard. And just there's some suggestions on the line. And once you get confident and comfortable with the command, it's easier to use the command line to make to add. That was me. It was Landon. That was me that spelled Archimedes incorrectly.
Mr. Bush, I don't know if you saw this also. Brennan had a question. Does the language ever give you points? And is it, it says language on the user. Do you ever need to pay attention to that? And then the second question I saw is it easier to create a user in the command line so you don't have to unlock it multiple times?
Right. Say that pretty much the amount of time it takes to do it in the command line, or especially with our competition images, you know, they already have a set of users. Dealing for and changing users and modifying them is easy enough through the user accounts tool here and as part of the settings. So I would just do that. When you're getting into the command line is things that you can't do through the settings window, and we'll have some on this upcoming competition. But I think especially for some of those who haven't really used Linux, you should be comfortable with this user account. And the question about language, whether you ever have to mess with that on a competition, I'd say no. But in terms of type of user and password, sure that you change any passwords that are too weak, like example of password. The password is actually password. Make sure you change any of those. Okay. One thing though too is that when you do change passwords, if you make them hard or if you're changing all the passwords, the Cyber Patriot system doesn't really know that you're making them the same password. As long as it's a complex password, then you can use the same time so you don't get yourself in trouble and forget the password or have to write them all down. Generally, that's okay. And you should write them down. Okay, let's keep going. Another trick, of course, is a firewall. You know it's in Windows, but you should think about enabling the firewall. So this is giving you some hints on how you do that. And you need to, normally UFW, the Ubuntu built firewall, is only accessible via the command line. But you can download the GUI version. Yeah, and do pay attention to what people are saying on the side there about writing everything down as you go. Okay. All right. So this is some more. You can just go through this on your own during the competition or whatever. If you're going to use the GUI version, you have these different options, and it'll tell you how to turn on the firewall. I'm not going to go into detail about how firewalls work, but especially for this first competition, we want to turn them on and for incoming connections and allow for out. So probably don't have to worry too much more about anything else. All right, here's some command line security. There is an editor that comes with Ubuntu, and it's called gedit, and then the G is graphical user interface. So if I just type gedit, you can see that's going to bring up an editor, and this is a basic text editor. So it's not fancy. It doesn't have all kinds of fonts and everything like that. It's just, but for editing some of the system files, you want to use gedit. And are we ready for another question?
Not in charge. Sure, go for it. Let's see. Adam Carpenter, you're up.
The question is this. For changing the user account windows, what's one of the main things you'll probably need to worry about competition?
Adam, you can unmute yourself, or you can type in the chat room, or if someone wants to jump quick and help him out quickly, go ahead and chat it out on the chat room. Got a couple answers coming in. Ashley Yohan said, locking yourself out. Password. Adam, if everyone who should be an administrator is one and everyone who shouldn't isn't.
Yep.
Very good, Adam. Well done.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. So those are the things that you will see during the competition. I think that's for Windows too. But you know, for Linux, this is how you interact with it, and you can find these charts there. Now, the gedit, I started to show you that because during the competition, you might have to enter and change some files in order to turn on some features. And here's an example one. Using gedit to turn off a guest account. Many of our Cyber Patriot veterans realize that having a guest account basically allows users to use the system without having an official account is a security risk, and so should generally be turned off. So here's an example. There's go into and edit this file. So I'm going to do that. I believe this is on Mr. Rodriguez's system. So I'm just close this. Go back to the command line, and I'll type gedit /etc gedit /etc lightdm /lightdm.conf. dm. And a lot of times .conf, these are configuration files. No, that's not there. Let me go to see if lightdm is even. So we'll go to cd/etc. I'll type in ls and light star. Oh, okay. It's interesting. I'm going to go to cd-lightdm.conf.d. Oh, it's just the. So this is what you get when you don't try something time, but you don't have to remember it because it's in the charts. All right. So the point, I'm going to give you an example of some information you can get. Okay. So I'm going to edit that file. Edit light.
While
That's
Mr. Bush is getting
three.
this going, I'm noticing again in your chat, it's saying, how are we supposed to remember all this? And Landon hit the nail on the head. You Google it. That is what Google is for. You need to make sure that if you are having problems with the command window, or if you cannot figure something out and you're totally stuck, you go to Google and you type in what is the command to do XYZ, and then um, 9 times out of 10 it will pop up, or some type of answer will pop up that will spur on the next thing that you can do. Okay, so you need to make sure that you always, 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 always remember that Google is your best friend. And I think Mr. Rodriguez and Mr. Bush will reiterate this 100 times, a million times, a quadruple million times over, that you need to make sure that you are definitely using the tools that we are giving you in the Google Drive, and then using Google itself. Okay?
All right, and so I apologize for the fact that Mr. Rodriguez's account isn't set up the same exact way as the Cyber Patriot one. These are excellent tips. So there's also editing the PAM file to be able to enforce password issues. So you can find instructions on that, password history. That's all stuff that is actually right here on the Patriot site, okay? Some other things here, I'm not going to walk through them because I want to take you to the last chart and we're running out of time. Okay, so the benchmark, so I took you through 2 chart packages rather quickly, and I apologize for that. The benchmark VM, that is this VM that Mr. Rodriguez built. So if you need after the competition, just want to have a virtual machine to play with, you can download it. It's on the Google Drive, and that link will take you to it. One thing I want to point out is that, and this we actually built for our more advanced Cyber Patriots, but there's actually a report of weaknesses against this virtual machine. And if you double click on the desktop, it'll open up a file and describe it. And there were questions about whether there's access to the Google Drive during the competition, and the answer is yes. You need access to the US Cyber Patriot site as well. And actually, we encourage you to take notes and keep track of what you're doing also in the Google Drive, because once the competition is over, those virtual machines won't be usable anymore. And anything that you would have done on them, they're gone. So when we get into more advanced, you can see all these vulnerabilities into the Ubuntu system here, and you can explore how to fix those. And that's one thing we're going to have you guys do. Let's see, back to the presentation. Yeah, you can look up stuff during competition. All right, so here's useful commands. I'm not going to get into them because we're running out of time, but be sure you use the man APT. That's a actually I have it to remember. So let me open up a command terminal window. Man APT. It's a high-level command interface package management system. So as some of the charts covered, APT is different packages you can install and uninstall on Ubuntu. So using that tool can do things like update software, which could be useful during the competition. Link to the benchmark VM. You'll see it's in the system image folder under Ubuntu Linux and benchmark VM by Mr. Rodriguez. The password for the user, which I bet you see me type in and get wrong, and it's right here. It says password equals this, and the file to download is the 7-zip file here, and you should be able to run it and install it your VMware player at home. Let's see, some other things that could be useful. and the tutorial, etc. So I think that's about it. And I know it's like drinking from a fire, and I appreciate everybody playing along with me with the questions and doing a little experiment. I think it was good because I got a sense that the more questions I asked, the more people were laser-like focused on what was going on. So I appreciate that. Miss, anything you want to say?
Yes, a couple of things. First of all, thank you guys for coming and being on time and doing what we're doing here. I know it is difficult because it's in the evening, but you guys are doing a really, really great job with this. Second thing is we are not going to have class tomorrow afternoon from 3 to 4. There is no class tomorrow from 3 to 4. I need to be somewhere and I will not be after school. But the lab will be open during lunch tomorrow. So you can come in and practice if you want to. Bring in a flash drive and download this Linux machine, or if you can't get it off at home or something like that. No, I do not trust you and Maya with my keys, and that would get me fired anyway, Isaac. But I just remember that you are getting out of fourth period on Friday. You are to report to M2. We will divide and conquer and make sure everyone has a spot for Friday. And then at noon, we will start doing the competition, and we will go until 3 o'clock. You can stay later with your team if you would like. But I know many of us need to be ready to go for homecoming that night, and you will want to go home and get ready for that. So again, like I said, thank you so much, and I will have this uploaded onto the YouTube channel in a little bit. And if you missed any part of it, then you can go back and review if you would like to. Okay. Andy said, can we download the 4 types of operating machines from the Google Drive? There are definitely all kinds of different operating machines in there. I don't know if everything works. So that is something that you'll have to just kind of take a look at. Brennan, if your teacher is sick and can't sign it, yes, you can have the sub sign it. We don't take homecoming seriously. Well, I would hope you would, Isaac, seeing as Leon is in the running for homecoming, so we want to go cheer him on. Do we know which operating machines we have this round? Yes, we do. I believe it is Windows 10, Ubuntu 16, and Server 2016. So things that we have not seen before. And I will have ready to go.
I would just add though that at least the Windows Server 2016 is similar to the Windows Server 2008, and Windows 10 is similar to Windows 7, and Ubuntu is similar to what we've seen.
So no panicking. Remember, this is a practice round, but we are getting ready for that November 3rd competition as well. Does anyone else have any questions to throw out into the chat room? Don't worry, Andy, your brain's not going to explode. It's okay.
I have a question for the group. What was the very first question? What was the answer to the very first question I asked? Go ahead and type it in, anybody. That's right.
Very good. And Sean Lewis, very funny. If you just install Server 2008 twice, you get 2016. But we should give you guys a silly drum roll there. Very good, you guys. All right, get off of here. You have had a very long day of listening to people talk to you. Go and get those homework done, and we will see you in the morning.